The show you are about to watch is a news parody. Its stories are not fact-checked. Its reporters are not journalists. And its opinions are not fully thought through. For the week of April 29, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, news out of Italy. Organizers of the Trieste Half Marathon are being accused of racism because they've refused to allow any African athletes to participate. Yeah. The only problem is, before they had finished announcing the ban, the Africans had already won the marathon by accident. They were just like, what do you mean I broke the record? I was just jogging to work. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of May 20th, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, officials in Austria are warning people to stop kissing cows. And this happened ever since a cow kiss challenge started last week to raise money for charity. And now here's the thing, it's not just the hygiene issue. Trust me, it's a bad idea to kiss cows. I know from experience. Yeah, it starts as a joking kiss. Next thing you know, you're in love, and she won't love you back. And I miss you, Janet. That's what I'm trying to say. I miss you. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of May 27th, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some news coming out of the UK. The leader of the Brexit Party, Nigel Farage, was recently trapped in his campaign bus as a group of protesters surrounded the bus and threatened to throw milkshakes at him, which is now a thing, milkshake throwing. They call it milkshaking, yeah, which is the most first world protest I've ever come across in my life. Let me tell you something now, in Africa, no one is throwing a milkshake at someone we hate. We give the milkshakes to the people we love. We're like, Daddy, you're home! Ah! All right, here are this week's headlines.
For the week of June 3rd, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some news coming out of Russia. Russian authorities have told Tinder, the dating app, to hand over all messages and photos of its users in Russia. Now, many are saying this is another attempt by an oppressive government to clamp down on its people. In my opinion, someone probably swiped left on Putin, and now he's trying to figure out what went down. He's like, you ghost me but agree to smash Chad? What is deal, Vanessa? Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of June 10th, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some news from Japan. The health and labor minister there says that workplaces have the right to force women to wear high heels even if they don't want to. Yeah, which is pretty shitty. But I say they should flip it. They should say, okay, they'll do it as long as men are also required to wear high heels. Yeah, then they'll cancel that rule real quick. You see the guys being like, Cindy, can you get, whoa, 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 whoa. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of June 17th, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some updates from the protest in Hong Kong. To encourage people to join the protests, apparently porn sites in Hong Kong were temporarily shut down. Yeah, and I guess this finally explains why those crowds were so big. Yeah, half the crowd was like, we don't want extradition to China, and the other half was like, what's extradition? We just want milftoast.com. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of June 24th, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some news out of Zimbabwe. 2 suspected rhino poachers were killed after a goat slammed into their getaway vehicle. And I gotta say, this is good news all around. Those rhino poachers got justice, and the GOAT just got a 6-year deal with the New York Giants. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of July 15, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some sexy news coming out of Scotland. Scientists there believe that they have discovered the origin of sex. I mean, like the very beginning. Theorizing 2 fish in Scotland 385 million years ago were the first to reproduce by having sex. Yeah. Which, can you imagine how tough it must have been for that fish to brag about it the next day? Be like, guys, guess who had sex with a goldfish last night? And the other fish were like, no ways. Also, what sex? Yeah. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of July 22nd, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some news coming out of Denmark. In that country, they're making it harder for people to split up. According to new legislation, couples now have to undergo 3 months of marriage counseling before they can get divorced. Yeah, that seems like a good idea, but all that's going to happen is a lot of unhappy spouses are just going to be suggesting surprise trips to other countries. Yeah, just be like, wow, honey, thanks for surprising me with this trip to Norway. Be like, we're here to get a divorce. Damn it, I should have known! Norway's the same as Denmark. Why would we come on vacation? Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of July 29, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some wild news coming out of Paris. Nudists there are complaining that voyeurs are spoiling their naked enjoyment of a local park. They're saying that these people are perverts for staring at them when they're naked. So, just to get this straight, if you like being naked in public, you're a nudist, but if you like looking at naked people, you're a pervert. Yes. It's a very gray area. And no nudists, I'm not talking about your pubes, get your mind out of the gutter. Here it is now, in this week's headlines.
For the week of August 5th, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some news out of Russia. Russia is accusing the United States of meddling in Russian politics by promoting anti-Putin protests. Now, this is bad either way, because if it's false, then Russia is lying about the US. But if it's true, then Russia isn't just meddling in America's elections, it's meddling in America's election meddling. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of August 12, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, a new recommendation from scientists in the UK. Researchers there are saying that if a seagull comes near you to grab your food, you can actually get them to leave by simply staring them down. Yeah, this advice can also cause seagulls to fall madly in love with you. Then you start dating and you get married, and the seagull and his family eat all the food at the wedding because they play the long game. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of September 2nd, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some news coming out of Great Britain. London will begin using underground heat from their subway systems to heat their homes and their offices. Yeah, which I think is a great way to save on energy. I mean, they should do that in New York. They should pipe subway air into New York City apartments. Then every winter you could turn on the heat and be like, ah, urine. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of September 9th, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, some religion news coming out of the UK. With attendance numbers plummeting at church, one church is introducing a new idea. They're launching a miniature golf course and a slide inside the church. Yeah. And look, it's a pretty good idea, but at the same time, I don't think this is a good look for the church. I mean, the last thing priests should be doing is implementing more ways to get little boys to enter their sanctuary. Well, here we go. It's time for this week's headlines.
For the week of September 16, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, wild news coming out of Japan. A cashier there was arrested after stealing the credit card information of 1,300 customers using only his photographic memory. Yeah, that's impressive, but I feel bad for this guy now. Not just because he's going to jail, but because he has a photographic memory. He's going to remember every single day of jail. He'd be like, yeah, on Monday, Billy punched me. On Tuesday, Jimmy shanked. Then on Thursday, we had mashed potatoes, and I hate mashed potatoes. Here are this week's headlines.
For the week of September 23rd, 2019, it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Global Edition.
Welcome to The Daily Show Global Edition. I'm Trevor Noah. Before we begin, a crazy story coming out of Australia, where a small fire at an artificial insemination facility for bulls led to a massive explosion of semen. And it's really amazing how semen is the only word that could make explosion even worse. Especially when you think that it was Australians talking about. It's like, oh, there's a massive explosion. Oh, no. Of semen. Oh, no! Yes, at least now we know what the second season of Chernobyl will be about. Here are this week's headlines.